Good morning and welcome to Morning Scoop for Wednesday, May 18th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Notre Dame game is in 109 days. The game against Michigan in 193 days. This fall's Ohio State schedule is starting to take shape, and now we have kickoff times for both of those games we're counting down to. This week, Fox announced that, no big surprise, the Michigan game would kick off at noon and be televised on Fox. And then ABC announced that the Ohio State-Notre Dame game will air on Saturday night, September 3rd at 7:30 p.m., So just like Matt Sars predicted on this show a couple of weeks ago, that is a primetime game. College Game Day will apparently be coming to your city for that one as well. ABC has also announced that the Ohio State versus Wisconsin game on November 24th will be on ABC. No kickoff time announced for that one yet, but it will apparently not be a big noon kickoff, so you can plan your tailgating accordingly that day. We should be getting updates in a few more of those first games of the season soon, possibly as soon as this week. We will keep you posted when we hear about those. One more update on a show we did a couple of weeks ago. The Ohio High School Athletic Association voted against allowing high school athletes to capitalize on their NIL rights by a margin of 538 to 250. So not particularly close, and no NIL for high school athletes in Ohio, at least for now. All right, so that takes care of the housekeeping. Now, today we're going to be looking a little further south at some other high school athletes who the Buckeyes are chasing in the classes of 2022 and 2023, and 2024. Marc Givler just got home from nearly 2 full weeks on the road for the Southern Swing. He joins me this morning to discuss some of the most notable stops on that trip. Marc, thanks for being here.
Yeah, good to be back in Columbus. It was a good 2 weeks, though. We got a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, you guys were just pumping out content that whole time. That was a lot of players, a lot of schools, and a lot of driving. I'm guessing Kevin Noon was on that trip with you. He kind of gave us some in-progress updates on the trip and the guys that you saw and spoke with while you were down there. But now that you guys have been back for a couple days, I wanted to let you kind of look back on the players who stood out to you the most on that trip. So let's start with this one. You obviously didn't get to see everyone practicing, and this was not, the middle of the season, so you didn't get to see guys playing games. But, who was either the most impressive person you saw on the field for a practice, or maybe the most physically imposing person you saw while you were on the road down there?
Yeah, I think the best guy I saw on the field was Richard Young, 5-star running back from Lehigh Acres in south side of Fort Myers. He was phenomenal. We watched the entire practice, broke several runs. They did a little bit of scrimmaging and broke several long runs. Just incredible combination of size and speed and burst. Definitely one of the top players in the class nationally. A guy that I do have to mention one other guy, and he wasn't. We didn't get to see practice the day, and quite frankly, it wouldn't have mattered because he's got a little bit of a foot thing right now, so he hasn't been practicing the last week or two, but not a long-term deal. But Darren Reed, the defensive lineman out of Carver High School in Columbus, Georgia, is a guy that Ohio State's been really high on now for a few months. Visited in the spring, and he's kind of shot up the Ohio State defensive line board here a little bit the last couple months. He's at least 6'4". He might be pushing 6'5". He's about between 260, 270 pounds right now. And so I expected to see a guy who, was destined to play defensive tackle, and maybe he will. I mean, there's a very good chance he still will, but there was no fat on him at all. We got to spend some time with him in the morning last Thursday, and it was crazy. I like I said, I expected a lot different, I think, physically, but he was completely, like I said, it looked like there was zero fat on him, so he was really impressive physically. I didn't get to watch him practice, but you go and then you watch the tape and you watch him running around. It's impressive.
And I know you guys did not actually talk to Richard Young. Richard Young has sort of shut stuff down in terms of interviews right now, but did you get any sense from those around him? I know that's sort of shaping up like maybe an Ohio State-Alabama battle, I guess, between those two. I think I just saw that he's taken an official to Notre Dame as well. Do you have any sense for where that maybe stands with Richard Young right now?
Yeah, so Richard didn't want to go on camera and talk. He's not really doing that stuff right now. But we did spend some time with him. Talked to his coaches for quite a bit, and spent a few hours there at the school. And the sense is still that it's going to be Ohio State or Alabama when it comes down to a decision. Oklahoma, I think, has made a decent impression. You got Georgia, and basically everyone's recruiting him. It's hard to throw out other schools when you got 25, 30 schools recruiting this kid, but The general vibe is that it's going to be Ohio State or Alabama. Obviously, he's got great relationships with both places. He's got a great relationship with Tony Alford. Alabama's got the history there at running back right now with what they seem to be producing almost every year. But now Ohio State, obviously, with J.K. Dobbins, in his NFL career and what Travion Henderson's doing right now. Both schools, I think, are surprisingly, I don't want to say easy depth charts, but it's not as stacked at either place as you might think Ohio State and Alabama would be at running back. I think both depth chart situations set up pretty well for him to get on the field early. So he's weighing all those things. And then it's like, how much does distance matter? I don't think that's going to be a factor. It's not super easy to get from Fort Myers. It's no easier to get to Tuscaloosa from Fort Myers as it would be to get to Columbus. It's a flight, or it's quite a drive. So I don't think that's going to come in. I just think it's going to come down to relationships, development, and just how comfortable he is in each offense.
So was there someone who struck you as the most surprising, the guy who maybe surprised you the most that you saw, or maybe the person on the field who exceeded your expectations the most while you were down there?
Yeah, I think Bryson Rogers, Ohio State wide receiver commit. We had a feeling that he was going to be maybe our pleasant surprise of the trip, just because Brian Hartline's recruiting so well right now. And, you see some places still have Bryson Rogers, I think, as a 3-star. And clearly, Brian Hartline's not going to take a kid a year early that he thinks is a 3-star with some of the other guys he's getting and has been getting. So I think we kind of expected him to impress us. But he was really good. I mean, he's definitely, he's about 6'3". He's a guy who can work out of the slot. He's got great feet, great route runner, great hands. We were there. He stayed after practice. He must have caught probably about 50, 60 balls after practice. Was the last guy off the practice field when we were there. And just strikes me as someone who's going to be very successful at the next level. And I think probably should be a guy that maybe Ohio State fans should maybe be a little bit more excited about.
Yeah, the Brian Hartline stamp of approval should carry a decent amount of weight with Ohio State fans, you would think, at this point. These trips are always... You end up with a lot of funny stories. You end up learning a lot of stuff, and it's not always, this is the way this kid is leaning or something like that. Give me the funniest or most interesting thing that you heard on this trip from a player or coach. I don't know, Kevin at a restaurant, whatever. What was the funniest or most interesting thing that you heard during your 2 weeks on the road there?
Oh man, that's a good question. I'll go most interesting. So we were running into a lot of mid-major coaches, coaches from non-Power 5 programs, and that's pretty standard on this trip. We tend to run into those guys, but oftentimes in the past, when you're talking to these coaches, they are there for completely different kids than we are there for. We're there for the 5-star, the top 100 kid who's considering Ohio State and Alabama and Clemson and all those types of programs. And those guys are there for the 2 or 3-star kid who has 10 offers, and they think they've got a shot, and they're trying to get. And this was a little different this time. And we talked to one coach at a non-Power 5 program, and we kept running into we ran into him, and then we were talking about schools, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I was there, 2 days ago, or I'm going to be there next week." And I'm like, it was kind of interesting. I'm like, why are we all going to the same? It's one thing to hit the same school, one time, but why are we both, hitting the same schools over a couple week period? And I was asking, like, well, who are you, who are you recruiting there, or who are you recruiting there? And he was giving me the kids that we were there to see. And sometimes he'd throw out another kid, but he'd be like, I'm going to see this kid, but I'm going to see that kid. Like, that's the kid we're there to see. And I finally asked him, I'm like, why are you doing this? You're not getting those kids. And it's the transfer portal. And so this guy, I won't give too much away, but he's a linebackers coach, and we saw several linebackers on the trip. He has his list. He's got a list of the top 70 linebackers in the country. So he goes, 1 to 70. So he's got all the 5 stars there at the top, or whatever. And he's going to see every single one of those kids, or try to, during the spring evaluation period, and then during the open windows. And I said, so you're going to go see, I gave him like a couple of 5-star type. He's like, yeah, I'm going to go see that kid, or I did go see that kid, or whatever. And he's just like, I have to do this. He's like, I've always tried to keep relationships with those types of guys, but he's like, even more so now. He's like, that kid, the 5-star kid that I talk to right now, he's not going to pick me today, but he might be in the transfer portal in 18 months, and I hope he'll remember me in 18 months when he's in the transfer portal. And so it's a totally new strategy these non-Power 5s are taking, where a lot of these coaches are, again, you're a coach in the American Athletic Conference or the MAC, and you're visiting a 5-star kid, and you're doing it with the notion that, okay, if he goes to Alabama or Ohio State or wherever and flames out in 12 months, that you might get him on the second go round. So it's kind of fascinating.
That is really interesting, and you wonder. I mean, we have not talked, so I don't know what's non-power school this was, but if you're a Georgia State or a Florida Atlantic or a South Florida kind of team, you get the Florida kid who goes to Minnesota or Texas Christian or wherever, somewhere outside the region, and they don't like it, and they get a little homesick. I mean, you've got a nice, easy landing spot. That's a really interesting twist on that. And I think Ohio State fans have seen that to some degree. I mean, we just saw, for example, Cormonte Hamilton from Memphis come up to Ohio State, and then a couple of years later transfer back, and he's playing for Memphis this year. So yeah, you have sort of seen that in practice already at Ohio State, and boy, that is really interesting how the game is changing, not just in the game, but also in the recruiting world as well. That is all right. That little insight was worth the trip all by itself. That was a good one. All right, let's see if you got a good answer for the next one. You saw a lot of players. Which of those guys that you saw is the most likely to commit to Ohio State? Not necessarily the next guy, but of all the people you saw who are not currently committed to Ohio State, who do you view as the most likely to be a Buckeye at some point this cycle?
I think I didn't believe this, probably as recently as about a month ago. I didn't believe this, but I think they're in great shape for Noah Rogers, top 100 receiver out of North Carolina. And I think he actually could be the next one as well. So I think we might have killed 2 birds with 1 stone there. I not only do I think he's probably the most likely to end up at Ohio State among the uncommitted guys, but I do think that could happen pretty soon. We'll see. I know he's still kicking around official visits. He does have one set with Ohio State. He's looking at some other trips. Maybe those won't happen though. So we'll see. We'll see just how soon we're talking, but I don't think we're talking several months out with Noah Rogers. I think we're operating on a shorter timeline than that. And I had a coach tell me from an SEC school 4 weeks ago or so that he wasn't sure his school could get Noah Rogers, nor was he sure that any of the big schools could get Noah Rogers, that he's kind of a homebody and kind of a quiet kid and thought he might stay at home at NC State, but that is very much not the latest information there. Definitely is sounding good for Ohio State right now.
Well, you may have killed not 2 but 3 birds with that 1 stone, because my next question was going to be the biggest improvement in the likelihood of committing to Ohio State. It sounds like that is your answer there as well. Is there someone else who you think is substantially more likely to commit to Ohio State than you would have thought, 2 weeks, a month ago? Or is there someone else who would be second place for most likely to be a Buckeye of the guys you saw on that trip?
Yeah, I think Brandon Innes is definitely trending heavily toward Ohio State. I think there's probably an extra speed bump or 2 along the way that exists for Brandon that maybe won't exist with Noah Rogers, and by that I just kind of mean, Brandon's going to take that early June visit to Alabama. That's going to be, that's never. You can never kind of shrug Alabama off. You always have to take that seriously when that happens, and they're going to come out of the gate swinging with that first official visit. But just spending time at American Heritage, I feel very confident now, more so even than I would have been a few weeks ago, that Brandon Innes is leaning toward Ohio State right now. and and Damon Fagan as well, his teammate. I think I think it's very likely that Ohio State gets both of those guys.
All right, we've gotten the recruiting stuff out of the way. We've gotten the future and change of direction in college football, all that nonsense out of the way. Mark, now it's time to have the serious conversation. Mark, what was the best meal you got to eat on the road during your 2 weeks out with Kevin?
Yeah, we had a lot of impromptu. Like, we don't plan meals on this thing really. I mean, maybe there's one day like in a city we know we're going to be in that city overnight, so, and we've been there before, and we have a spot or something like that, and so we had one or two of those. But you really can't plan these, and unfortunately it's not the greatest situation as far as health. I mean, you're not eating. We're not counting calories. Luckily on this trip, there's several drive-throughs involved by the end of the trip, just because you have to just kind of keep moving to your next stop or whatever. But we were driving around. We were going to see Troy Bowles, the top 100 linebacker out of Tampa Jesuit. And he's over there by like Raymond James, where the Buccaneers play. The school's like a mile away from that stadium, and then George Steinbrenner Field is there. It's like the Yankees spring training field or whatever. And they're kind of like next to each other in this big area. And so we were just kind of driving by the stadiums, taking a look on the way to see Troy Bowles, and we were going to look for lunch, and we knew there were some fast food places and some other places if we got desperate that we could stop. And we spotted this food truck, this like a taco stand, like right across from George Steinbrenner Field. And we're like, okay, we'll see. And then we kind of like thought on it for a minute, and we pulled in, and we're like, okay, we're gonna do this. And it was my favorite. I'll give a name for anyone who's ever in the Tampa area. It's called Taqueria Margarita. And like I said, it was right across the street from George Steinbrenner Field. So if anyone, you can put George Steinbrenner Field into your maps or whatever and get over there. But we didn't even think about this. It happened to be Taco Tuesday. So their tacos were on sale. It was like they were like $1.75 each. Like it was insane. Like it was like 6 tacos for like, I think we got out of there with 6 tacos and 2 drinks for like $15 or something stupid. It was so super cheap, delicious. Kevin got it was like a steak and chorizo mix. And there was smaller street tacos. You got like a steak and chorizo. So we each got 3. And then I did I got 3 different kinds. I think I did a plain steak, a steak and chorizo, and an al pastor, which is my favorite. And they were all fantastic. The al pastor tacos were fantastic, and the steak and chorizo, which I'd actually never done before. I've never really noticed them on a menu before. I don't think that's a super common. I'm sure it's done, but it's not like a standard taco that you get at any place. So they did the steak and chorizo blend. That was phenomenal. They had 2 types of salsa. The red was spicy. The green, they had like a salsa verde that was not particularly spicy, but it went excellent with the steak tacos. So it was money, and it was just this little just a family that must run the food truck together or something, and just kind of off the beaten path. And I know, I'm sure we'll be back in the Tampa area next year. I don't know if we'll be stopping at Tampa Jesuit necessarily, but I'm sure we'll be back in the Tampa area next year. We are every year for this, and I know we're going to look that up and see, hopefully it's still at the same spot or we can find it or whatever. But that was a very pleasant surprise, because we were pretty close to one of the chain fast food place type places at that point in the day, needing to eat something quickly, and that beat the hell out of McDonald's or Wendy's or something.
Yeah, it is amazing how often on the road it's the random the food truck, or if you're driving through Texas, the little barbecue shack on the side of the on like the access road next to the highway or something. Yeah, the places that you would
attached to a gas station or something.
Yeah. Still, we make a point to go to Fuel City Tacos every time. Tony and I are in Dallas. We go to Fuel City Tacos and get gas station tacos. Yes, it is not. I don't think any of those places have a Michelin star, but yes, it is. Always a really good, really fun, different, and pretty unique experience, and generally pretty darn good as well. So glad you guys got some good food. Glad you guys saw some good football players, and a lot of good insight on there for you. So, Marc, thank you for joining me. Make sure you check out Marc's podcast. He does it with Bill the Bank / the Ace Green at his first career hole-in-one. We'll have to have Bill on the show at some point to talk about his hole-in-one, maybe some recruiting stuff as well, but we'll see if we can get him to talk about anything other than his hole-in-one. Bill hit his first career hole-in-one this week. Pretty exciting. You can get the Marc and Bill's podcast, Gives in the Bank. Tony and I do the Buckeye Weekly podcast. Kevin Noon does Big Meat Kickoff. Alex Gleitman does Around the Oval. He just had another great episode this week. Make sure you check all of those out. You can subscribe right there. Just search Buckeye Scoop wherever you're getting this show. You can subscribe, leave us a 5-star rating and review as well, which will help other folks find those shows as well. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.